Hi, I'm Russ,
And I'm Danny,
and this is the Memory Makers Podcast.
the show that helps you create amazing customer experiences and make more memories.
Memory Makers Podcast. Simple jingle today.
It's simple. I like it.
How's you've been hitting up some site visits the last couple of days, and you seen anything fun and exciting that tickles your fancy?
I one of the things that I love seeing most often, and I literally just saw it at the site I was at 45 minutes ago, is seeing the fingerprints of how people continue to evolve and change the site over time.
Yeah.
And as they expand and add more space, or as they reimagine their space and adjust things and constantly evolving and reinvesting, that to me is one of the clearest indicators and markers of FECs and other location-based venues, entertainment venues that are successful.
Absolutely.
It's not a set it and forget it. It's always reimagining, trial and error, testing new things, expanding, and that way anytime a guest comes in, it's wow, look at this place, it's changed, and look at this and this, and it's exciting.
Yeah, it's really fun to see folks that are leaning into that and making it fresh and new every whether it's once a year or whether it's every couple of years, but adding new things to excite and draw folks back to get more of that per cap visit is you just see it pan out so successfully, which is great. So glad that you're getting a chance to do that.
Speaking of adding new things, is a great segue into what we're going to talk about today: escape rooms.
Wow. That's our segue sound effect. I don't know. That's our hard transition sound effect, Mike, if we want to use that.
Sounded like Shy Guy, the noise that he makes in Mario Kart when he spins out.
Yes, it does. Wow.
Yeah, I play Shy Guy. That's my character, so I know.
See, I'm boring. I'm a Yoshi dude. Like it's nothing too fancy, but he's good, consistently good across the middle of things that you can beef him up on how you need. So that's my go-to.
I love it when we take left turns that neither of us planned for.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people think we script this stuff. Nope, none of that was scripted. Not a single bit of it.
Grip it and rip it, baby. That's how we do. So let's get into escape rooms. It's interesting, and especially of late, and why we wanted to talk about it was just as our team has been working on, talking with customers and kind of what they're looking at. We've had another big pop recently of escape rooms, so we just thought, hey, let's get some content out there on it and see, how do we vet whether escape rooms are a good fit for what we're looking to do, who's being successful with it, what are they doing that's leading to that, and how do we start to skin this cat? So the first things first, are escape rooms still a thing? And the answer is yes. Especially coming through when you're looking at looking to create something more for that young adult date night experience and have some expansion with your food and beverage and things like that. It's still such a great social outing that can pair so well with everything else that you've got. And since we've gotten involved with escape rooms, now 8 years ago, 7 years ago, give or take, the biggest thing that we saw when FECs were looking to bring in some a la carte escape rooms instead of being the traditional standalone, is really, hey, what's the life expectancy going to look like for this thing for me? As well as, what are the different types of experiences? What kind of footprint should we be looking at? So we're going to dive into a few of these different things. But again, it's something that's still very relevant from a social outing experience that people like. I think one of the big things that has started to come out in more recent years is having a broader demographic or age range of titles available. So that's something like, hey, we want to do something for kids, or we want to have something that isn't, just the young adults. How do we start to look at that? And there's some really cool experiences that we've done, as well as others that are putting out there and, targeting towards a younger demographic with it. So the biggest thing that I tend to talk with folks about is, hey, what's the life expectancy on this? And the good news is it really kind of can depend on, hey, if I'm just putting in a single escape room versus maybe 2 or 3 different, stories or experiences that can be done, that will have some impact on what, because if folks are coming to your facility and they play the one escape room that you have, when they come back, escape rooms don't really get updated with new puzzles or things like that. Like once you kind of let that thing ride, and it usually takes a couple of, 2 to 3 years before you really saturate that experience, depending on where you're at. But if you only have the one, then when the next time that they come, they're not as likely to do it again because they've played that game before. There's some that do that. So where we've really recommended folks start to look at is start with 2 at least, because when they come once, they're not going to play both at the same time, and that way there's something new for them along that vein for them to experience the next time that they come. So I think the other thing, Danny, that you and I have both talked about is, what kind of market are you actually in? Because that also gives you a longer shelf life depending on if you've got tourists or if you're predominantly local.
Yeah, we look at something like, we got a couple of clients. There's Booby Trap escape rooms in the Wisconsin Dells, and then we have Crave Golf Club, which has escape rooms and indoor and outdoor mini golf and a couple of other things in a candy store. And we've done some escape rooms for them, and they're in the Gatlinburg Pigeon Forge area.
Yeah, and shout out to both of those locations, because those guys, I mean, just... You want to talk about fabulous examples of customer experiences and really awesome stuff to do, like... Check both of them out. They are fantastic.
With them being in a predominantly tourist-driven market, their shelf life is going to be longer than someone who is drawing from local crowds. That you have the same groups coming in, same people, 2 to 3 times a year is kind of the average for most FECs for an average customer. Now, when I say shelf life, and I think it's important to specify here, that doesn't mean that after 2 or 3 years, if you have a local FEC, that the thing's going to be falling apart and it's going to be a bad escape room. It's just that you will have hit saturation where the majority of your market has played it. It can last many, 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 many years, and both Crave and Booby Trap are great examples of that. They've got escape rooms from us. Booby Trap, the first ones we installed, I want to say that was 5-6 years ago.
It was 6 years ago. They were, they did 2. They were the first ones to do those 30-minute autonomous experiences that we put together, and they've not changed it. And by the way, when you talk about kind of financial performance, like those guys had their full ROI in 3 months with the traffic that they were doing. So perks of that high tourist and timing of when that was going in. But same thing with Booby Traps up in Wisconsin Dells. They have all 6 of our experiences and, hit really great ROI. But again, to your point, as you were saying, as far as the shelf life, more in regards to the customer base, like there are folks that are coming there, just, once every few years typically, but there's just such a high volume of them that it feels fresher longer as people keep coming back and back because they've got multiple rooms on top of the fact that they don't get played by the same person as many times. Whereas we also have some local clients like 814 Lanes and Games, that is a predominantly local market focused piece. And they've taken some approaches with the types and variety of experiences that they put in to give a little bit more relevancy, but also have some throughput and capacity efficiencies and different types of groups that they want to attract.
Yeah, and one of the things that flows into the next point that we wanted to talk about, 814 is a great example of this, is they did 2 of our rooms that are very different kinds of experiences, but they're also different lengths. They have a 30-minute experience and a 60-minute experience. And the reason why that is helpful is it gives them options for their customers of what kind of experience they want to do, how much money they want to spend, or how much time they want to spend in that room. And I think looking at the different lengths is also helpful because we do 30-minute autonomous rooms and we do 60-minute traditional rooms. We offer both because we know that there are going to be some businesses. A lot of the times it'll be a standalone escape room business like Booby Trap, which shares a parking lot with Knuckleheads. It's all the same company, but it's a separate business. They did want to have a lot of those 60-minute full-on experiences. But a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, family entertainment center operators who have escape rooms in their overall mix, it's not a separate business, it's within the kind of 4 walls of their FEC, don't want an experience that lasts an hour. They want to be able to get people in and out more quickly to be able to get them into different profit centers. So when you think about your own escape rooms, there you could do a 30-minute, a 45-minute, a 60-minute. Some even do even shorter than 30 minutes. It just depends on the way that you want to think about getting people into the different experiences, how fast you want to turn them over and get them out into different profit centers.
Yeah, and to your point with 814, the nice thing that they realized and were able to achieve with a 30-minute experience and a 60-minute experience is, hey, we've got two different options. The 30 minutes great for more of the impulse purchase of the person that's coming there and like, oh yeah, we should do that. Oh, that one's great, and the price point's a little bit less. Like, typically you're going to see on average like $20 per person for a 30-minute experience versus $30 per person per experience for a 60-minute. But the nice thing is it takes half the square footage and you're getting twice the turn on it in an hour. And so it ends up, if for half the square footage, that 30-minute experience can net you an additional 30% more revenue than what a 60-minute would. So some really great benefits of better usage of space, better kind of options to meet folks where they are, but they also realized that their 60-minute experience was really well tuned towards the corporate events and team building type of things and more reservation driven guests as well. So they were able to have this nice balance of a little bit of something for everybody within that core concept to really take advantage. And those guys have done great. And as they're adding additional locations, they're looking to continue with the escape rooms and that type of mentality because it's continued to prove out for them so well.
One of the things that's important, and we kind of asked this question at the beginning, but didn't fully answer it, is, sometimes we think about what venues do escape rooms make sense for? Who does this make sense for? Because here's the thing, escape rooms are not for everybody, and that's okay. For us, because we sell escape rooms, of course, we'd love to, install many more of them, and we will, but it's not for everybody. Mm-hmm. Escape rooms are not an unstaffed, set it and forget it attraction that's just going to sit there and make money. If you want that, do not buy an escape room. Mm-hmm. Just full stop, because it won't be successful for you. There is a staffing lift that's required, which I know right now is a very tough thing for some people to think about because they're already on a bare bones staff. But it is something that's not it will be nice if you have a staff member. It's a requirement to have a staff member to run this. Now, here's the great thing is, depending on the kinds of rooms that you do and the kinds of software that they have built in, shameless plug, we do some really cool software in ours, is you can have one employee that can operate more than one escape room at a time if you're set up appropriately with the right kinds of software and the management tools within kind of their control room center. So you can gain efficiencies by having one person operate and run more than one room. Again, depending on the vendor that you work with and what kind of software that they can provide you and some of those efficiencies. But that's something to think about. If you want to operate an escape room, you will need to have a staff member who does it. And we talked about this in a previous episode on some characteristics. And one of the other things that you'll want that staff member or staff members, if you have multiples that are trained in this area, is they'll want to be able to have some ability to kind of troubleshoot in the moment. Because at the end of the day, the way that we build rooms and the way a lot of rooms are built, there's a ton of technology in there with things and software and triggers and all these different things. And for the most part, they work really, really well. Every once in a while, the guest is going to do the thing they're supposed to do, but then the door doesn't open or this screen doesn't play or something doesn't trigger quite right. It happens every once in a while, and having your staff member with the ability to watch them and go, they triggered the thing, it didn't go, let me manually hit it now, so that the guest does not realize that something wasn't working the way that they expected it to.
Yeah, and to that point as well, having somebody on your team that is a good, kind of tech savvy. They don't need to have their master's in computer science to be able to make this by any stretch of the imagination. But, when you're thinking about, hey, we've got wires and magnets and things that are triggered, like there's some daily checklist items that they're going to want to double check of like, hey, is there a kink in this wire? Okay, great. Can we, massage that? Can we make sure, hey, this door, we're 2 years in and now all of a sudden the magnet has, isn't quite aligned the same way. So we just want to be able to do it. So having somebody that's able to, roll their sleeves up a little bit and just, give it a little bit of daily inspection to make sure that stuff's staying high and tight, that goes such a long way in keeping that stuff, easy and small at the beginning and not, ballooning into anything that's more complex than that. But just, good food for thought. Like when we talk with, early in the days when we were selling escape rooms and we had, trampoline parks that were interested in doing it, wasn't something that we were inherently recommending because predominantly the way that they were set up for staffing was, not geared towards that type of an attraction with that staff level. It just wasn't something that they had training or beefed up team members to be able to take that on. Now, as trampoline parks have diversified, added other things in as well, it's much less of an ask, operationally for them, because they've got all other things that require that same level of TLC and kind of, tech savvy 101 elements to it. So, it's really nice to see all of that kind of come together for folks as everyone continues to grow and evolve, like we were talking about at the beginning of the episode. So, the last thing that I wanted to touch on is, this is something that we get quite a bit when we're chatting with folks of, hey, I want to do escape rooms, and what's the best path forward? There's kind of three different buckets that I drop this into. There's some folks that will do the DIY route themselves. Then there are some folks that will buy some pre-existing kind of kits and still install it themselves. Then there's a franchise route that you can do with something like Escapology, or there's what we do with the traditional kind of full turnkey rooms that have the software, that have the built-in support and all of that stuff, but it's not part of a franchise model. And so when we look at what are the pros and cons of this stuff, when you're going the DIY route, and Danny, you and I have seen this in Pigeon Forge and elsewhere all over the country. When we go in, like, if it's something that you're kind of slapping some things together and everything's just got purple bike locks on it, but you're supposed to be in Da Vinci's workshop or something, it takes you out of the experience, and the amount of sophistication that you can put into the props and things can suffer, as well as the overall finished look. It can look a little bit like, oh, okay, it looks like we took some stuff from Goodwill and made this happen. For the right operator at that price and all of that stuff, that's totally fine. There's no sneezing against it. It's just take it with a grain of salt coming from us, because we have a preference on how we approach some of that. But looking at the puzzles and making sure that you've got a nice different variety and things that are actual, physical manipulation of items, and not things that aren't just number punch codes, and what's the interaction between the puzzles, so that way it can feel like it grows and builds as you're going through the experience, instead of solving 12 individual puzzles that happen to unlock that last, stage. And then for folks that look at the franchise model, there's some significant benefits for looking at something like Escapology, where they have, existing marketing opportunity, or, resources and best practices and all of that kind of stuff that comes with it. They also have really groovy IP-based experiences that you can do, like Batman and Star Trek and Scooby-Doo. So there are some definite things where they're kind of covering the upfront development costs and licensing out some really groovy IP that can be a significant draw. The only thing that folks need to be aware of is that does come with, franchise fees and those kinds of things. And so you're not keeping all of that revenue, but a lot of folks find, hey, the benefits that I'm getting for it justify this, what have you. The other route, then, if you're going with someone like us that's doing these standalone experiences, is we're not going to be licensing out, rooms for the Hasbro and Mattel stuff like that, traditionally, because it's so expensive for us to provide that, or for you to source it directly and do that as well. There's a lot of costs that can come with that licensing and guaranteed money on the line and things. And so it's just its own beast to try to tackle. So with our approach and how we do it, it's, hey, you don't have revenue sharing and those kinds of things, but you don't have, necessarily like a, Batman or Star Trek type of experience to offer. So it's really then evaluating what does the end number, really shake out to be from a profitability standpoint and operational support and all of those good things, to see what's a good fit depending on where you're at and what you're looking to achieve with it.
So speaking of good fits, kind of going beginning to end of this entire episode of understanding, do you have the staffing capability to be able to operate this well? And if you do, what are the lengths of rooms that you want to have, and what are the combinations of rooms? And are you in a tourist market, or are you in a more of a local market? And how all that's going to go. And then what kind of experience, what age demographic do you want to hit? And then lastly, do you want to have this be like a traditional attraction that you normally get, where you have it installed and then you keep all the revenue? Or do you want the advantages that come with something like an Escapology franchise that also has some trade-offs as well with the franchise fees? They're all different kind of variables that you want to consider when looking at escape rooms. And if ever you have any questions about escape rooms and does it make sense for you, and what might make sense in your business, our team is always here and happy to help answer those. So I think that seems like a good place, Russ, for us to wrap it up.
I agree. Be sure to come back next week for our episodes. We've got groovy content coming, some really awesome interviews as well that we've got in the queue. So we appreciate you guys stopping by and spending some time with us.
If you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.
And that 5 stars is always appreciated. Please and thank you.
If you've got ideas for any future episodes or topics, follow us on social media and send us a DM.
And shout out as always to Mikey Mike on the 1s and 2s working that Ultranet for us. And thank you for joining us. We'll catch you on the next one, Troublemakers.